I'm going to be honored every time we're going to get started. We may have a few people coming late. And if I can make sure that everybody gets a chance to answer these questions on your sticky notes, then we'll leave that for later in our presentation. Whichever to take a minute, go ahead and do your entry task. So your entry task, be prepared to share your name, who you are, one word that is belonging to you, and then explain a time you felt like you belonged in a class. And so, okay, so about 1 more minute.
Hey there. Wow. Feeling so fine. Sure.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
So go small.
Yes.
So it's not very
Yeah. It's not that she like us. Like you said, I'm like me or something. It's just like that.
yeah, this and you can't get it. Time lapse this one. All right. Can I get a quick check? Thumbs up if you're ready to move on. Thumbs up, you need one more time. Okay. All right. So my name is Jennifer Awesome. I'm the founder of Awesome Consulting and Educational Services. And yes, Awesome is my real last name. It's not the one. Awesome. Yeah. It's not the one with the voice, but it is my last name. Come on in. We have some handouts and that's sticky now. So before we get started too far, I want to let you know that I am video through this. My dad asked if I could video the for him so we could see it. I'm one of those dads, so I am videotaping. So to our friend that just came in, on your sticky note, you're going to need to write your names, one word that means belonging, and explain a time you felt like you belonged in a classroom. Okay, I'm going to explain why we're going to do these specifically. Your name, being able to declare your name, is pretty low risk. Okay, asking you to share one word is also fairly low risk. We are taking a chance of being vulnerable when we share a bit of how we feel. But hopefully by the end of our presentation, you'll be able to explain in greater detail of how you have felt like you belonged in the classroom. So this is very structured for a reason. I'm also more of a back to the classroom kind of teacher, so I'm not up here and I'm just walking around. So we're going to be talking about belonging, what it takes to feel like you belong in a classroom, and why it truly matters. So in order for students to get to that zone of proximal development, where they're able to get to that place where they're willing to take a risk and make mistakes, because mistakes are where we learn, we have to make sure they feel like they belong. Let's thank you. So academic success improves when people feel like they belong. Emotional safety. If we're able to provide kids with regular check-ins throughout their day, hit some of those social emotional standards, give kids an opportunity to share, hey, this is how I'm feeling right now. Here's what I need, and here's how I can move forward and then be ready to learn. It's important that we take that time, because you guys, have you heard of the marble jars where you put a marble in again and again? And some people say fill the bucket with drop after drop after drop. If we take that little bit of time today, tomorrow, the next day, eventually we have a whole jar filled, bucket filled, and the kids, we earn their trust. They're able to come talk to us, and they're able to take bigger risks and maybe their mistakes. So in education, we have a lot of disconnections that happen. A lot of us expect kids to sit in their seats, focus on the roles. Okay. And it cycles that creativity and that engagement. I remember one of my first years teaching, there was a huge conversation around being culturally responsive and how do we code switch in a classroom. So coming up with what are those signs? What are those routines that we want to put in place to say, hey, we're going to code switch. So are any of you guys elementary teachers? Okay. Middle school? High school? Post? Adults. Yeah. Okay. So even with adults, like we have a full day PD on Monday at my school. I need to know, how am I going to get my teachers to code switch from, okay, year 5, you're going to talk about the weekend. Now we need to talk about some nuts and bolts. Now you're going to go to your professional learning teams. We need to know, what does that look like? What is that routine that lets us code switch into being ready to be in that space? Lack of student voice. I worked in a tribal school over at Suquamish, and I was working with a teacher who was in charge of coming up with all the activities for the kids for the year. And I asked her, okay, so what kids are you talking to? How are you getting that buy-in from the students of, hey, this is what we want to do for the year? Oh, I just tell them what they want. Well, no, how can you tell the kids what they want? You're not going to get that buy-in. So coming up with ways to bring out that student voice, that student choice in your classroom, it's going to make a huge difference. And ignoring the cultural identity, so failing to acknowledge diverse backgrounds, can alienate students. So I've been hearing a lot of conversations about, this person's from this place, this person's from another place. How do we bring in that rich cultural environment? How do we acknowledge their languages in our classrooms? Because I think that what we're all trying to do is have that sense of belonging and acknowledge, hey, you had a different experience than I have. How can we share that? What do we have in common? How do we build that bond? All right. So what's one school rule or routine that could shift from control to connection? Yeah.
Maybe, well, control is like no phones, and connection could be like use your phone somehow. Connect, maybe.
Productively. So finding a productive way to use those phones in a classroom?
Yeah.
Absolutely. What else could be another one?
Where they have a school as like English only policy for the international students, and so I think finding ways to encourage like students to use trans language instead of always English.
Yeah. I think that would be a huge one. I would even have a hard time with only being able to speak English. I only speak English, but being in a group of people where they're only allowed to speak English, that's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just using obvious things like before you start a unit, like getting information from the kids, what do you already know, and then also like the turn-in talks. So the teacher isn't just like running the show and especially clicking through all the information they want to give, but they have to allow the opportunity for questioning and interjections and making it more organic.
Yes. So allowing for that student voice, that discourse to happen, because learning isn't an individual thing. We learn as a group. I mean, I'm up here facilitating, but the knowledge is out here with you guys. So I have to find a way as a facilitator to get your voice out so that we can all learn from your experiences and find ways to connect from pre-K to adult learners, because our goal, I believe, as educators is to grow learners, right? Is that what we tend to want to do? We want to inspire people to learn for the rest of their lives. Yeah. So one routine that I think about when it comes to shifting from that control to that connection is at the tribal school that I work at. We have every day we practice a circle. So this circle for the tribe I work at is everybody who's willing to, goes down on the floor. They drum, they sing, they dance. But a good majority of the kids choose to sit in the stands. Okay. There's a disconnect with our staff of, well, if you're sitting in the stands, are you truly participating in circle? Or do you have to actually be down on the ground singing, dancing, drumming to be fully participating? So the other tribal school I worked at, Baron Old Coyote explained to me, and look, I'm not going to force you into the ways of our medicine. If the only thing you can do today is sit in those stands, that's how I want you to present yourself. If you feel like today you can drum, that's how I want you to present yourself. If you're ready to raise your voice, the only thing you can do is lift your hands to us, then that's how I want you to present yourself today. But having that knowledge shared to everyone, that's important, because if we don't communicate what our expectations are, to go from a rule to build it into a potential routine that builds connection. That's any questions on going from a controlling rule to possibly a connection building routine? So again, going from compliance to connection, it's really a mindset shift. And I am trying to throw a lot of things out at you guys and not going into too great of depth, because there's little bits and pieces that we would all take differently when it comes to building these connections, understanding what it takes to make people belong. So encouraging the mindset shift fosters those connections. It promotes empathy and understanding among the educators and our students. We create a culture where relationships thrive over control and compliance. So the mindset shift of, well, what does participating look like in my example? Participating can mean one thing to one person, one thing to someone else. But as long as we can have that conversation together, then we can understand and come up with that mindset shift, build those new routines, and come up with a plan how to move forward. Ask before you act. So this is an idea that when something comes up, you're going to ask, okay, what are some of my different perspectives? And if you're not able to shift your perspective, you may need to speak to another person and glean their information of, okay, I have this idea. Here's what we want to do. But I feel like I'm stuck. This is the only way it can be done. So how do I have that conversation with you? Do you guys, as teachers, educators, do you guys get to go into people's classrooms and watch them teach? No? That's one of my favorite things to do. Okay. There used to be this company who did a STAR project. You got to go watch other teachers teach and see what's working well for them and learn what you can do better too by watching other teachers. So if you ever get a chance, go watch other teachers teach. So being able to see, making sure that these experiences are worthwhile to the students, seeing what works for them, and using the opportunity is, as long as you ask before you act, you can get some of these thoughts put in place so that when you actually do the project, you consider different perspectives. Okay. I'm going to jump ahead and we're going to do a circle activity. So I'm going to ask everyone, I tried to make a little bit of space back there for your sticky notes, and we're going to name the circle. Probably going to be more of an oval, right?
Do you have on your slides on a QR or something so that we can get them? I'll have to do now. Yeah.
All right. Come on, even don't be shy. Come into our circle. All right. So something about these circles. We try and make it a circle as much as possible. Clearly, there's constraints right now because of the space we have in the room. Because there's something about when we face each other with nothing between us, we're able to share our energy with each other. And that's a huge tribal belief too with the tribes that I work with. So being sure that we're all in the same place, equal, give us an opportunity to build off one another. So we're going to go around the room and we're going to answer only, what is your name? So my name's Jennifer also.
My name's Maggie. My name's Brittany. My name's Whitebird. My name's Jennifer. I'm Hannah. My name's Jennifer.
My name is Josh.
I'm Mary Gus.
I'm Alexei.
Andrea. Maria. Leah. Dee.
Nice to meet you all. Okay. Now we're going to go around the room and explain what is one word that means belonging to you. So mine is community.
Acceptance. C.
Unity.
Community. None. Compassion.
Inviting.
Welcome.
Visibility. Security.
Home. Connection. Family.
I'm noticing that some voices are a little louder as we're going through this. We're a little more comfortable with each other after having shared just a couple words. Okay. So now we're going to go into the bigger one. What's a time where you felt truly belonging in the classroom? So mine was sitting in a woodshop class just the other day. And as the teacher who was subbing, I actually got to sit there with some of the kids who spend a lot of time in my office because I do a lot of discipline. And being able to sit there and talk with those kids, and they got to show me how do they do their woodworking, how do they sand and things, and share with them that, well, I actually know how to do some of these things, and connect with them on that level of, hey, we can do these things and have come from a different place. So that moment really felt like I belonged in that class.
I was thinking about when I was a student. So I wanted to be an English teacher because I had a really amazing Spanish teacher in high school. And she always called everyone by name, and always we had our English names, but I had our names in Spanish, and so everyone had their little Spanish persona. And she made the classroom feel like it was the most exciting place to be.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I was in Japanese language school, and before I entered my class, we all had to take a survey of our research interest, and then that teacher incorporated one article from everyone's interest into the curriculum. So when we were learning, we all got to learn about each other's interests and also our own. I felt really unifying.
My senior high school civics class, I had a teacher who was a very gruff man, a veteran, not a former cop. Nevertheless, they taught us a lot about, our civil rights and things like that. They even took us to court one time for a criminal matter, where we get to see, the judge and the defendant and the prosecutor and the jury as well. We just sat there, but we learned. So I kind of developed a reference for them.
When I was in English class in high school, I said to the teacher, you know how in college they have the big bookshelves with all the books and a fireplace, and you kind of sit around in a big chair and you talk to your professor and drink coffee. And she said, well, we don't have any of that, but we can drink coffee. So she bought us a coffee maker. So we all saw coffee in high school, pretending.
I said after the long period of COVID where I couldn't be in the classroom and I couldn't talk to my students, and then finally it was safe to teach my students live in person. And I felt oh, this is where I want to be. This feels like a strong reconnection. This is how it should be.
I'm trying to think. I always with English language arts in elementary school. Once Earth Week hits, it's kind of like the pressure of all the testings over and everything. And so I remember taking this small group of first graders at the time outdoors, and we were going to look for nature. I need the nature. And there was a little boy from Ukraine who had been, had some trauma, and he was finally opening up, and he just started dancing wildly and enthusiastically in the grass so that all the kids joined in. And I remember thinking, wow, the magic is happening. They're comfortable, I'm part of this, and they're all happy, and we're all enjoying something cool. So,
Yes. I was going to say, when I was in 7th or 8th grade, the first day of my Spanish class, I remember walking in and the teacher just stood at the front door and shook all of our hands. I remember thinking, even though he was like, well, I don't know how old he was, 50 or 60 at the time, I was like, he's so old, but like, I was like, he's like treating us like we're equals, like eye to eye. And that just like blew me away and made me like feel so comfortable.
As a student, I felt a sense of belonging when I felt like I was doing well in the classroom. Good.
I have a more recent experience. I'm still finishing doing my master's now. So last year I took a advanced feminist class in gender, women, and sexuality studies. It was all women, trans women, just cis women, but I felt also belong because as an educator studying the topics of diversity and sexuality, I feel like I always have to leave that part outside of the classroom, and there I felt like I could talk about those things.
I thought of when I was in 5th grade. It was when Roots, the book and the show was out. We had this unit called Roots, and we had to do some research on our family backgrounds. And the teacher, I'll never forget, it was so cool. They had a bar chart showing, how many people's grandparents were from this country, or this country. And I just looked at that. It was cool because you could see, oh, I'm part of that little bar up there on the wall.
Well, I thought more of in general, and what I wrote is when I knew others and others knew who I was. And I think not just as a student, but for my students. I think that when we know each other and people welcome you, and it's like you have a name, you have a person, and know who you are, around, that's where I feel that.
I was thinking as a student and as a teacher, and I just thought last week when the students were doing a group activity and I joined them at the table, I was just interacting with them. Yeah.
Mine's kind of twofold. Our program shut the place down over the summer that I worked at, and there were classes. And I got lots of emails and texts from the students going, why aren't you here? Why don't we have school? Why aren't we here? So I felt like I should really be in the classroom. I shouldn't be at home. And then once fall quarters started and people showed back up, and they're all giving me hugs, going, oh, we're so glad to see you again. It's like, yeah, I see what it feels.
Well, okay. So, as you saw, we got to a point where very quickly, because we're adults, we do this quickly, we were able to kind of communicate with each other, connect on a different level. I heard a lot of people going, oh yeah, that's great, and laughing, giggling. So we were able to build a connection and feel like we have some level of belonging in here. Now, a couple different ways that we can use this circle. After you build a routine and kids are comfortable doing this, or adults, I know I keep saying kids, any learner, you can actually say, okay, does anybody want to express themselves in their native language, in their own language? So is there anyone here that would like to share anything in a different language than English?
About what?
Just you can, at this point, maybe share belonging, like a word that means belonging in your native language.
Well, I'm originally from Costa Rica. I love my country, but it's funny when I hear
tourists when I travel home will come and they use the phrase pura vida and they really embrace it. And it's a way of life. So if you've ever gone or come, or who are able to go, like you really feel what that means and what it is. And when people use it, it's like, oh, I know part of that. And so it's nuts.
Tika.
I'm a tica, yes.
Okay, what else?
Want to share something?
Posso falar português?
What's that?
I speak Portuguese.
Yeah. So just imagine you're in a room with a bunch of other language learners and you ask them a question, but ask them to express themselves authentically in whatever language that feels most comfortable to them. You know, you can always ask them, hey, can you also translate that to English so that we can all understand? But giving them the opportunity to express themselves how they want to present, like that's a huge moment. And it's not necessarily something you do the first time you're having one of these conversations, but down the line, that's something you can work towards if kids are willing to. Adults first, they'll be vulnerable. Another thing that you can do with these circles is there's a lot of studies about having a talking piece. Actually, when I did that woodworking class with the kid, I got this talking piece. So the kids at my school, they have to make, I think it's 50 of these feathers in a woodworking class, and then they have to do 100 words that they have to sand a little block of wood and put a word on it. So you can all, but a great activity to do with your adult learners or with other teachers is to actually build, okay, what do you want your talking piece to look like? And build that connection as you're building your talking piece. Okay. Yes, then return to your seats. Thank you for participating in our circle. Oh, good.
Ana Cortios, na pega, I would think about sick again. That's already I'm just teaching English. Yeah, in Arabia. So, like, super close. Yes.
All right. So by doing that activity, we had an opportunity to foster connection with one another, build empathy. I don't know that we necessarily built empathy, but I think we built connection in that circle. And we were able to share some joy. Now you can also get to a point where you have those difficult conversations and difficult discussions by having those restorative circles, which it takes a little bit of practice to know the rules of the circle, how to engage with each other in an appropriate manner, especially if it's a difficult conversation. So I'm not recommending just doing a restorative circle first, like especially like a discipline one or a disagreement. Definitely practice these smaller circles and before you do that. So I'm gonna go back. One thing that I believe very strongly in is appreciative inquiry. And I actually did my master's project on using appreciative inquiry in math because I was a math teacher. Appreciative inquiry is focusing on people's strengths and their abilities and focusing on what is already strong within that person, what is already working well in that group, in that community. So maybe what's working well in your classroom, in your school, your outside community. Starting there, acknowledging it, celebrating it, and then getting to the point of, okay, now that we know what we're good at, what can we fix? But in a positive way. So one thing that we just did in that circle is we all got a chance to tell a story. You got to tell a story about something that really meant something to you. The way that you can learn someone's strengths is to do a storytelling practice where you tell a story about something that was like one of your favorite things you ever did as a child, or what made you feel like you were really successful when you were young. You can do this with younger kids too. What made you feel successful yesterday? I remember a kid in my math class was talking about he helped a kid with their bike. Like it got broken. He saw them on the road with his friend. stopped, tried to help him fix the bike. He got it up and running. I think he had to go to his dad to get help. But ultimately, that kid was talking about they care about other people. They have a mindset where they're like, oh, I see a problem, I can fix a problem. And then also some of that hands-on of, okay, I can actually go fix that bike. So giving your kids an opportunity, or your adult learners, or even yourselves, an opportunity to have that storytelling opportunity, come up with what are our strengths. And then you can focus on, okay, well, I'm really good at problem solving. And for my kids that were struggling in math to hear that's already something that they're doing, they were able to relate it to math and be like, okay, maybe math's not so bad. Because I get a lot of kids with math sucks. I get it. But you can solve problems. Maybe you're really good at video games. Well, that takes problem solving strategies. So in that circle, we were able to kind of do a storytelling and start some of the basis of how do I do an additional inquiry story, come up with what I'm strong at, and then go there. So again, this is not all in depth, but just giving you a little bit of this. We already talked about this when we did our circle. These are some quick wins for relationship-centered practices. So some things you might be able to take back with you today. I'm really big on, if I'm going to go to a conference, I want stuff I can do on Monday. So I was not the good teacher. I did not reach you guys immediately as you walked through the door, not all of you. But that's one thing you can do. Our school actually put up, they required posters for every teacher of, okay, you walk through our door. You can get a handshake, a high five, a fist bump. You can do a little dance, things like that to build that connection of right when you walk in the door. Is that the third one? Community building roles. You have that person who never wants to sit in their seat, ever. Okay? One garbage duty. Oh, do you want to walk around? Okay, I'm going to go pick up a piece of paper here. Go do that. Pick up a piece of paper here. Go do that. So they're restoring the community of your room by getting back by cleaning, and they're getting there walking out, if that's what we need to do. My kids would be given a box of rocks to take to another teacher quite often. That was their task. It was this heavy box they had to struggle to carry, and that helped them feel like they're part of the community, not knowing it was a box of rocks, but they were sending a favor to that teacher, and that was super helpful. I've had kids bring me this big red confidential folder from their teacher with a note inside of like, they just needed a break. Thank you. Like, well, thank you. Okay, here, let me write back to a teacher. Now you take it back. So there's ways you can build those in your rooms. Positive home contacts. I know we talk about these all the time, even with your colleagues, with your adult learners. Maybe not positive home contacts, but making sure that you're letting them know, hey, I really appreciate what you did today. Learning was great. You know, you did X, Y, and Z very well. I appreciate the way you did a challenge to share this, to learn this. Making sure that you give them those positive notes is really helpful. I've also had some kids lately say, hey, is so-and-so here? Because I share an office with people, and I say, no, but you can leave her a love note. And I actually saw her post on Facebook the other day that a student left her a love note. That was a win for me. And a 2x10 strategy. So spending 2 minutes a day fosters meaningful connections with students. If you can get so that maybe first thing in the morning or middle of your lesson, end of your lesson, and it's like, okay, as a exit task, share one word of something you learned today. Just if we're in the room and you've taken about 2 minutes and built a connection. I am also a huge believer in project-based learning for belonging. Okay. When our students are building a project, and again, we talked about that compliance of having to learn the curriculum. Yes, that is a huge, huge part. And can we also take the curriculum, some of these standards, and change it into a project that's more real world, that we can build with community members. Gives kids an opportunity to take full ownership of their learning. And the best thing with project-based learning is that how do we share out what we've learned? So instead of kids being terrified, oh my gosh, I have to present, it can be all right. You're going to share with the community what you learned and turning it so that maybe they're not so scared of having those conversations in front of people. So one of the things that I had a opportunity to be involved in is when I was student teaching in Cleella, I got to participate in a project called Cougar Wise, where we actually went out. We were working with Wazoo, and we actually went out with the scientists on snowmobiles to track the cougars, tranquilize the cougars, took their samples, measured their feet, measured their weights, got their blood. Now we got to share out as a community. Okay, we have a lot of cougars in the area. What are we seeing? What do we need to know? So the kids got to build projects and actually help Washington State University with their study of the cougars. They did them with elementary kids that was what are the birds in the area. So they got bird feeders. They got to chat and see what birds that they found. They also did one called Firewise, where it was the history teacher, language arts teacher, math teacher, and science teacher. It was a month-long project. The kids had to build a house that was fire resistant because they get a lot of fires up there. So they had to go through the project of writing the permits, going through all the laws of how to actually, what the codes of what they could build. They had to do the math. They had to build a house, an example of the house. They had to give a presentation at the end of the unit to the community, the firefighters too. And then at the end, they burned the houses to see which ones actually were more fire resistant. So that was cool. And working at Chief Kitsap Academy as part of the Suquamish Tribal School, they have an opportunity with their sovereignty to go fishing early when salmon arrive. So we took the kids out. They built their own nets, a seine net for fishing. They got a grant to do that. We worked with the community fishermen, Suquamish Seafoods. We worked with, we had to get a hold of some of the other people with boats to support us. And we took out the 8th graders and the 11th graders, and we went fishing. We went and caught salmon. We worked with their hatchery to actually tag the fish, find out what was, take their measurements, collect their eggs, check and see, if there's anything wrong with them. The next day, we took everybody and invited other schools with their Native American kids to come to the Suquamish Seafoods, and we cleaned the fish. All of them. So imagine these kids with these huge knives in a fishery. Okay, they took so much pride in cleaning them. And of course, they come up to you and they're like, here, eat a knife. Here, eat a heart.
Oh,
Okay. I'll eat half of them. And then the next day, we got them all ready for smoking. We had a traditional smoker. And the kids, the teachers had to take rotations, staying up till 3, 4 in the morning to make sure that the fish got fully smoked. And then the next Monday, we would can the fish and give them out to the community. So some of these things, if we can look at our community and say, okay, what's going on in our community? What matters to our community? How can we build that in with our students? How can we build that in with our adult learners? How can we give that to them and encourage them of, okay, what do you see going on? How do I empower you to make sure that you're taking that time and opportunity to improve where you live? So I really love finding ways to involve families and communities. My first teaching job was in Wapato, Washington. It was a huge Hispanic population and the Yakima tribe. My favorite thing about that place was the Cultural Unity Fair. It was the biggest thing, and I think it's probably still a big thing. I hope it is. But every population got a booth. They got to decorate it, and it was, what is the food for your culture? And people came around. They got tickets to get food from the different areas. On the stage, people were singing, people were dancing, sharing whatever it is about their culture, and then sharing their arts. In the hallways, like building a cultural unity fair was a huge draw for them. So we talked a little bit about discipline, a little bit. Using strength-based feedback with kids, especially when they're dysregulated, really helps them get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm not in trouble. How do we build from this experience I just had? Because we want people to be able to express themselves in a safe environment when the price tag is low. And usually in our rooms, we can have that conversation because it's not out in the community. So using transformative correction, rewriting negative statements into strengths-based feedback. Sometimes it takes a little while for us to figure out how to have those conversations with kids. Constructive communication, using clear, positive language to influence growth. And our growth mindset model, which I'm sure you hear about all the time. See it, name it, grow.
Heal on. Can you go back to one point?
What's that? Yeah. And like I said, I can certainly email this to you guys. My email is on both the page and the you get. All right, so a couple things, we know that belonging is in fact a prerequisite to learning. And community is much more than belonging to something. It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. So it's kind of hitting when I was building this. So you've got about 5 minutes left. There are a couple of reflection prompts and commitment to action in your handouts if you want to take that time to do that. But I also want to honor your time and thank you guys for coming in. I've had a great time learning from you all. Thank you. And if you want to shoot a quick email too right now, hey, I want this slide. It's okay. You can just I cannot build that.